Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to the CIL, the Collegiate iRacing League, here on Twitch and YouTube. And tonight we got a good one. A lot of people's favorite tracks here out in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, in the United States. It's Road America, and you see it on your screen right there. A cool track here tonight, 73 degrees, and gonna be plenty of fun for all the drivers tuned on in tonight. The GTE qualifying underway, and we'll see the students here in a minute. Joining me up here in the booth, as always, is the wonderful John Price. John, how's it going tonight?
It's going well, Jared. It's going well. I'm looking forward to this one. One of my absolute favorite tracks. It's a very unique challenge. It's a very long track, a really high top speeds, about 165 mile an hour top speed in the GTE cars, about 5 miles an hour short of that for the students in the GT3 cars. And some of these cornering speeds are pretty insane. I'm talking about 150 mile an hour through the kink, one of the trickiest corners in most of American motorsports, and it's a big time commitment corner. But really, this track is kind of full of commitment corners. They're all over the place. So turn 1, big time. Turn 14, the carousel, very famous corner. So a lot of famous elements around this track, and these drivers are going to have a hard time getting to grips with it tonight. You said 73 degrees. That's ambient temp, so not too bad. I'd be wearing a short sleeve shirt outside for sure, but 110-degree track temp, so maybe not going to dip into those sub 2-minute qualifying times. I'd be kind of surprised if anybody could edge that out, at least in the GTE field. But GT3 car is probably about 5 seconds slower, I'm thinking, for tonight, Jarrett. And definitely going to be a fun one to watch. A little bit smaller field tonight, but all of the championship contenders are really in there, so I'm sure we'll have quite a few overtakes for those that might have gotten bored watching Monaco this weekend. There's definitely no shortage of overtakes in this league, and some that are pretty impressive as well, I might add. So, yeah, Jared, I think I'm definitely looking forward to this one, man.
Definitely. Week in and week out, we always talk about the multi-class racing we have. For those that this might be your first time, or maybe people that are unaware, we do run 2 different classes. The alumni are in the GTEs. They're going to be a little bit faster than the student class cars. You'll see the red windshield banners on the alumni, the green windshield banners, and spoiler tips on the student cars, so pay attention to those throughout the race. John mentioned the very long track. There's a couple very long straightaways, especially that super lengthy front straightaway. That's going to be very interesting if we get that close locked in battle. We've seen throughout the GTE field how guys manipulate the draft, and you talked about that commitment corner turn 1. It's a tough corner, a lot of speed you're carrying into that corner. You got to get throttled on down for that 90-degree right-hander. Interesting to see on lap 1, and interesting to see towards the latter half of the race. We've seen battles really all season long. Towards the end of the race, I would expect more of the same here tonight at Road America.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty safe bet. Speaking of bets, I'm going to throw some predictions out there. So I already talked about qualifying lap times. It looks like Jeremy Rogers just pipped pole with a 2-minute .936 to take pole position for the alumni, just as the students get going exiting pit lane right now. Derek Ekmanis pulling up P2 in qualifying for the alumni, a 201.377. Rahul Bellini for Michigan Tech, it win with a 202.082. So that's your top 3 in the alumni field. Nick Daly for UTA, and then Carl Lemkel for St. Louis, your 4th and 5th place on the grid. And yeah, these students getting out there ready for qualifying, going to be working to heat up those tires, get some energy into them. Well, some guys I know like to put a qualifying specific setup on for this track, since you'll run quite a bit of fuel weight starting out on this track. So once you remove that fuel, the ride height obviously jumps up quite a bit. And so if you take all that fuel out and your ride height's really high, you can lower it back down again, get a little bit of extra grip in that car, minimize that lateral load transfer, and gain a little bit of lap time that way. So we're looking at Alexander Clank and now Cohen Evans for IUPUI in the very tastefully designed BMW M4 car. And a lot of interesting paint schemes tonight, a lot of familiar faces in the field tonight as well. This is the famous carousel corner that we mentioned earlier, really long right-hander. It's really hard to kind of see the end of the corner when you're mid-corner, and you got to be changing throttle conditions mid-corner to set up the exit. That's the kink right there, car sideways in the middle of the track. That looked like the Illinois machine. I think that's going to be Nate Olson, and so he's got it crossed up out of the kink. I'm betting what happened there, Jared, is he probably tried to carry a little bit too much speed through the kink. When you drop 2 tires off that outside edge on that outside curve, you typically end up perpendicular to the track after that. So I'm betting that's what happened there.
Yeah, not a good spot to be. So you're seeing right now, it's group qualifying, and Interesting to see we have these 4 cars mixed up as the Embry Riddell car has a little trouble right there. That's Alex Jensen on the final corner. But we see the drivers maybe manipulating the draft a little bit. We have stronger GT3 field here tonight as Jamie Lawrence joining us late here for the GTEs. We're riding on with Thomas Toomey. John, take us through a lap at Road America.
Yeah, let's do that. So we got Thomas Toomey just up here in front of us. We're going to be running down to turn 3. Heavy brakes at the 2 board, get turned in, hug that corner, to use a famous Martin Brundle quote, like your favorite granny. It's a pretty tight corner, actually, tighter than it looks. And then you got to keep it all on track on the exit there. You can maybe get 2 tires off into the gravel on the outside. So running down to turn 5 now, biggest braking zone on the course. She's going to be spotting that 3 board, braking just before the 2 board, taking a little bit of outside curve and then bending it in tight down to first gear and using all this exit curve here, really extending the track as much as you can. And then a tricky corner, turn in over the crest, the rear end becomes very unsettled. You've got to be careful with the initial tip in there, and then use a good amount of exit, swing it back over to the left, just a small lift for turn 7, use a lot of exit there, and then we're running down to turn 8, very similar to turn 5 in that you're braking at that 2 board, swinging it back down in, but you're probably leaving it in second gear, trying to minimize that wheel spin on exit. It's a little bit slick on the exit there. Then we're in at third gear for this very fast right-hander that is the carousel. Is going to drift out wide, now bring it back down tight again to the apex, try to meet up with that apex a little bit wide off there, and then use all of this exit curve, and now we're setting up for my favorite corner, the kink. Minimize that entry, and then carry all the speed through, let her get right out there to the exit. That's about 140 miles an hour for the GT3 cars through that corner. So Max Bui trying to figure out his position there on the radio, and then hard brakes at the 3rd board down for Canada corner. Very tricky opening up right-hander with not much camber in it, and then through Thunder Hill up through turn 13, just a slight lift on the throttle, clip that apex, don't take too much extra curve, swing it back over, brake at the transition of color in the pavement, and then swing it in for turn 14, get on the throttle as early as you dare to take this long run up the hill, up to the start-finish straight, and then ultimately back down to T1. So, as you can see there, really tricky track, really fast track, and it's going to present plenty of overtaking opportunities, I would bet tonight, Jared.
Definitely. We've had no shortage of those throughout the year. You talked about it at the top of the broadcast. It'll be very interesting to see how drivers navigate and where drivers choose to pass. Do you wait and maybe slip in the draft and then dive down into that inside groove? Kind of that famous Formula One style of passing. Get in the draft, activate DRS, dive to the bottom. Kind of hard to do in these cars that don't have DRS, but with these long straights, might be something we see.
Yeah, I think it might be. This is probably the only real track on the calendar I think that we're going to go to this season that really presents that opportunity to really focus on utilizing the draft for the pass. So you don't have to get a perfect exit out of turn 14 or turn 3 to try to enable a overtake attempt down into turn 1 or T5. We'll see a lot of Daniel Ricciardo-esque attempts, I'm sure. You guys can come from a long way back, especially in turn 5, the turn we're looking at right now, and try to send that one up the inside there. Sometimes you can kind of catch the guy unaware and he has to delay his turn in the corner. So if you just kind of show your nose into turn 5, sometimes it'll open up the opportunity for you. But we'll see plenty of mind games and plenty of racecraft on display tonight. These guys at the front of the GT3 field love to run in packs, and if there's a track for draft racing and pack racing, this is definitely one of them. We're watching the Sean Campbell machine right now for Randolph College on my screen going through the corners right now, and he's been pretty quick all evening and all of the practices that we've had so far, currently sitting on pole with a very fast lap compared to the rest of the field, a 2:05.6, absolutely flying. These GT3 machines are still pretty quick cars, man. Michael Kaholich for Angelo State, about half a second off that pace. Still early in qualifying, got 4 minutes to go, and Jared, I know some guys were kind of taking their time getting the heat into the tires. The cars really start to come in their own with about a minute left in qualifying, so it's all going to be on the last lap, I would bet.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we see that in real life racing as well. Guys waiting for that opportune time, and you talked about the long length of the track, these 2-minute laps. So you factor in that out lap, your first lap, your second lap, and now all of a sudden you're out of time. You get 10 minutes to qualify here, as many laps as you can complete in those 10 minutes. And we saw the GTEs run 2 laps and be done with it for a lot of them. We saw Rogers, McManus, and Bellini all just kind of call it a day after that second lap. So saving the car for the race as we watch Parker Eaton head down that front straightaway. Right behind him, you see that BMW machine I believe that's Jacob G. Watson, if I'm not mistaken. It is the number 99 machine making his way out onto the track. And right now,
Yeah,
sitting at
yeah, down there
205.
from Queensland. Yeah, with that 2:05 second lap. Sorry to cut you off there, Jarrett. So I'm looking at the back straight now. We're actually between turns 2 and 3, or sorry, 3 and 5. I've got a pair of Mercedes heading down to turn 5 right now. Sean Campbell getting a little bit racy and qualifying. Wants track position over the Angelo State machine. Two very fast Mercedes drivers. I wonder if that actually might have been Angelo State trying to give it a little bit of, or sorry, not Angelo State, Embry-Riddle, excuse me, trying to get a little bit of strategy, because you don't want to be the front car in qualifying on this track. And if Alex Jensen can pick up a tow off of Sean D. Campbell, that'll help to promote him from what's currently 10th in the GT3 field, maybe up to a little bit higher spot up there. So we'll watch for that, see if he can hang on to the tail end there. Kind of be tricky to do that through carousel. Really, the places where you want to be tucked in under the bumper are down to turn 1, turn 3, and turn 5. Outside of that, you actually might want a little bit more clean air in front of the car. A couple other guys have set some pretty quick times, though, it looks like. We've got Alexander Klenk for WPI, Worcester Polytechnic, just about 2.5 tenths off of Sean Campbell from Randolph Community College. And Michael Koholich, mentioned Angelo State earlier. This is the car I was talking about, with another 2 tenths off of the WPI machine. So we've got a double Mercedes front row right now. Not used to saying that at all if anybody's watched F1 for the last 7 years. And all Lamborghinis after that, plus a couple BMWs and one Ferrari from Alejandro Diaz. Rahul Bolognini, excuse me, for Michigan Tech, also in that GTE Ferrari up there. You know, Jared, I get tongue twisted between the GTE, GT3 Ferraris especially. They look pretty much the exact same on track, having a hard time identifying them sometimes.
Definitely. And the Ferrari, one of the better looking cars when we talk about that a little bit inside and out. The BMW with that big front grille, and then the classic Ferrari look. And we talk about looks, but let's talk about performance as well. Guys able to pick and choose which kind of car they like. And as we see, the top 2 Mercedes and then all Lamborghinis all the way back to 7th in the GT3 class. Do you think that's maybe a little bit of in their minds here tonight, John, of which car to pick, which car is going to excel at this track?
Yeah, you know, maybe a little bit. We do expect Mercedes to have a little bit better straight line performance, but the Lamborghini is really good in the sector 2 of this track, where we've got some of the slow corners, some of the off-camber handling specific corners. So we'll see how that plays throughout as the tires wear and the fuel loads come down throughout the race. But if I get my choice of starting position, I'm going to take that pole position where Sean Campbell is right now, and just take maybe the slight disadvantage the Mercedes has through some of the corners.
Well, speaking of a disadvantage, the folks at NextBookIt are going to provide you none of those. You're going to get all the advantages and more of a in-person bookstore. So we'll hear from them, and we'll be right back with the starting grid. So as you just saw right there, NextBookIt connects book lovers with each other to buy and sell everything. Textbooks, fiction, nonfiction, literally everything. For every account that is created with the code CIL2021, that's CIL2021, $5 is going to be donated to the CIL Scholarship Fund. That's going directly back to the drivers that might want to choose a different car, maybe want to visit a track that they don't have. All goes straight to them. So use the code CIL2021, create an account. It'll take you less than a lap at Road America will, as we wrap up this GT3 qualifying. John?
Yeah, GT3 field getting sorted out here. Checkered flag being shown. I don't think any cars have yet to take the checkered flag. I was watching Parker Eaton on his last lap. I think he aborted, wasn't improving, so he just went straight to the pit lane. So that's going to set your GT3 field. Sean Campbell for Randolph Community College sitting up there right now in P1 for that field. Alexander Klenk, WPI machine, up there in P2. Michael Koholich for Angelo State in P3. Nate Olson for Illinois in P4, and then Thomas Toomey for Virginia, your top 5. Parker Eaton, Matthew Norberg, Cohen Evans, Alex Jensen, and Maximilian Bouye for USC are your top 10. Then Alejandro Diaz, Jacob G. Watson, Jared Kaler for UNC Charlotte. Surprised to see him down there. I do not have a qualifying lap for Jared Kaler on my screen, so not sure what's going on there for the UNC machine. UNC Charlotte machine. And then Esteban Munoz, a late addition, was not able to set a qualifying lap either. So the FIU machine joining the UNC Charlotte machine on the back of the grid. Then Jamie Lawrence, we talk about him quite a bit, likes to play this on hard mode, not set a qualifying lap. He's trying it again tonight. You don't see his name on the screen right now, but I'll be sure to see that San Diego machine work his way towards the front of the alumni field, I would bet, Jarrett.
Oh, no doubt. Jamie Lawrence had the pace in every season that he's raced. He's been with us since the pilot season, and no stranger to that last to first challenge, as he's starting to call it. We'll see if he can get up there and challenge with the likes of his teammate, Derek Ekmanis and Jeremy Rogers. Don't forget about Rahul Bolanini up there from Michigan Tech. He's been quietly up in that third, maybe second area. So maybe this is his night here at Road America. So now as the cars starting to get settled on the grid here at Road America, they're going to do a full lap. Let's bring it through the qualifying order. Jeremy Rogers from Texas A&M, he will roll off first here tonight. Derek Ekmanis from San Diego State starting in second. Rahul Bolanini from Michigan Tech in the 333 machine rolls off third. Nicholas Daly from UT Arlington starting in fourth. In fifth here tonight overall is Carl Lemkuhl from St. Louis University. He's nursing a little bit of food poisoning here tonight, so pay attention to how the 095 able to perform, trying to summon a little bit of Michael Jordan's famous flu game inside that car tonight. Sean D. Camel from Randolph Community College rolls off sixth. First in the GT3s, the students, Alexander Klink from WPI, one of the drivers to watch here tonight, rolls off seventh. Michael Koholich, one of our onboard drivers here tonight. We'll see him in a little bit. From Angelo State, rolling off eighth overall. Nate Olson, the first of our Big Ten runners. He starts ninth from Illinois. Matthew Nordberg from NC State, already seen some cheers. He rolls off 12th. And actually right before him, Parker Eaton and Thomas Toomey, 10th and 11th from NC State and Virginia. Continuing on down your starting grid, Cohen Evans from IUPUI starting in 13th. Alex Jensen from Embry-Riddle will roll up 14th. Maximilian Bowie carrying the other onboard camera for us here tonight rolls up 15th. So we'll get a good look from the tail end of the field for the start of this one, but I expect Bowie to sneak his way up as well. Alejandro Diaz from UC Berkeley rolls off 16th, and Jacob G. Watson, the final qualifying time, starts 17th. You see Jamie Lawrence, Jared Kaler, and Esteban Munoz, all three drivers without a qualifying time. They'll be starting at the tail end of the field.
Yeah, it looks like the race organizers opted to not do a split class start, so Jamie Lawrence is down there at the back end of the field with a lot more power than those GT3 cars in front of him. So he'll be trying to make some moves. Hopefully he doesn't get caught up in anything. And actually, I'm not, yep, he's back there in the GTE field. So that's going to be a tricky start for him. He's going to have to keep his nose clean and try to stay out of some of these pretty tight GT3 battles here at the start and try to make his way onto the back of the GTE field where Carl Lemkuhl is currently. You see those guys warming their tires following the Porsche pace car around. Split start, though, between the two fields, so it is the leader's discretion as they come off of turn 14 once the safety car takes his lap into or rode into the pits. And Max Bui on the radio right now trying to talk about you don't need to swerve into me right now when you're warming your tires. So a couple of guys getting a little bit annoyed at some of the other traffic around them. I got to turn down the sound actually, Jared, and my thing. Guys are all over the radio right now trying to figuring out how the start is going to work. But yeah, guys getting ready to go here tonight at Road America. You know, with the split class field and the leaders getting to choose at their discretion when to start this race, and actually it looks like the GT3 field let Jamie Lawrence by, so that was kind of them. So he'll come up underneath the rear wing of the UTA machine and take the start from there. So that's good to see for him. So we'll see him make some moves probably early in this race on those cars in front of him. But yeah, with the split starts in this field and the leader discretion away from the green flag, that gives him a big advantage leading down to turn one, which, Jarrett, at this track, you really need all the advantage you can get in terms of car spacing down to turn one on that first lap.
Definitely. We've seen drivers get single file pretty quickly. We'll see if that happens tonight. I think we're going to get that kind of grouping, and then something's got to give there as we approach turn one. So we'll see who backs out, who stays in it as we approach the green flag here. You see him going under the Road America Bridge into the carousel. That's going to be a fun little spot to watch. And you mentioned the kink, John. Who's going to stand in the throttle? Who's going to back out? And who's going to clip that grass? The grass very dangerous in both these cars, but especially the GT3 or the GTE cars, excuse me. So we'll see how that one goes.
Yeah, grass super dangerous here, so if you even think you're going to run wide on the exit of any of these corners, your best bet is just to lift as early as you can and try to keep the car on track at the risk of losing as much time as you might from doing that. It will be way less time lost than, way less time lost than if you were to actually spin on track, which we saw a couple cars doing in qualifying. So definitely a bit of a risky track in that way, especially compared to some of the tracks we've been to recently, Circuit of the Americas, with those massive concrete runoffs. And then Suzuka and Laguna Seca, not too safe either. So maybe a little bit more similar to to Laguna Seca in that way. But yeah, see some guys trying to get some last-minute temperature into their tires. The GTE field ran in Canada corner right now. A couple of last-minute weaves to try to feel out how that car balance is going to behave down to turn one. In terms of points, Texas A&M is leading that field closely, followed by San Diego and then Wisconsin. We don't even have a Wisconsin car in the field tonight, unfortunately. Both Sam Roslansky for the GT3 cars and I believe Ted Burns for the other driver in Wisconsin for the alumni category, not able to make it to this race. Would have been their home track as well. So we're going to see the safety car pull off here, and Jarrett, take us away for this first lap green flag.
So Jeremy Rogers leading the smaller GTE field here tonight. He's going to get a good jump as they head up the hill and down towards turn one. You see the Michigan Tech car trying to fend in that draft, and they're going to go 2 by 2 as they head down toward turn one.
Yeah, on board here with the SDSU machine trying to follow in close behind. Going to get overtaken by Michigan Tech down into turn one. Bold move. Going to try to do the over-under on him, though. Come back up the inside, going through the non-existent turn two down to turn three. Hard on the brakes, get turned in nice and early. See a lockup from the St. Louis machine there in the background. It looks like the Porsche, it looks like Derek Ekmanis was able to hang on to that position for now. And he's still side by side actually with Michigan Tech machine. And sounds like the GT3s are going through the turns right now as well. So clean start from them. Sean Campbell still leading that field. WPI tight behind.
Good little run right here. You're seeing the draft paying off. Koholich taking his pick. He's going to try and slide in behind Klink. They go 2 by 2. Campbell and Klink down hard on the brakes using that ABS. And Klink able to stay safe, but Campbell going to take the position and the lead here in the GT3s.
Yeah, so Campbell able to retain that first grid slot, and Michael Koholich down there for Angelo State loses a position to Nate Olson off the start here. Nate Olson, the Illinois machine in that Lamborghini, making his way up, so a couple of swapping positions right there. Thomas Toomey able to retain 5th position, and then it looks like Cohen Evans behind may have jumped up a couple of positions as well. We'll see finally once they cross the line what their delta is. I've got a UTA Porsche way off in the kink. A lot of damage on the left-hand side of that Porsche on my screen as the other GTE cars come past. So he got a little bit wide, maybe tried to take it at full throttle through the kink on lap 1. So let's take a look here. Does a good line so far, and yeah, he's just running way wide. So he was very much up underneath the rear wing of that Michigan Tech Ferrari and lost all the front downforce you need to successfully navigate that corner at that sort of speed. So he's going to come in, probably take that fast repair now. Looks like an FIU machine, Panther Esports car. Esteban Munoz failing to execute the same corner, it was kind of close to the same mistake there, it looked like, Jared.
Yeah, and you talked about the kinks, so easy to get on that grass and maybe sneak it on around. And we saw 2 drivers do it. We'll see if more do it throughout the night. But that first lap where everything's a little bit colder, hard to do right there. Hard to carry that full throttle through there. And depending on setup, this is an open setup race, so maybe some guys have a little more wing than others, and maybe some don't have enough for that corner. As you're looking at Cohen Evans right here, trying to chase down Parker Eden from NC State just in front of him. Or right behind them, Thomas Toomey and Alex Jensen locked in a good battle.
Yeah, 2 4-car battles in the student field right now, so definitely a bit of calamity going on back there. It looks like that Embry-Riddle machine tucked up right underneath the bumper of Thomas Toomey for Virginia. We'll see if he can make a move down there into turn 5. You know, this is a track that tends to benefit you if you can't quite get the pace out of the corner. If you run a little bit more downforce, if you can stay with the pack, you'll be better off in terms of tire wear closer to the end of the races. You might have some extra opportunities kind of past the halfway point of this race to start to make some extra moves. So definitely be on the eye for that. And yeah, this 4-car battle definitely raging on down there in the student field.
Back up to the GTE field. Jeremy Rogers starting to pull away already. 2-second gap between him and Derek Ekmanis. Jeremy Rogers loving Road America already. Further on back, Jamie Lawrence. You saw him sneak on up to the tail end of the GTE field, and he's trying to continue his way up through that. Now on the rear bumper of Carl Lemkool in that Ford Chevy Corvette.
Yeah, that car keeps catching us out each week. Look at that Porsche right underneath the rear wing, getting a little bit anxious there. Not a great place to make an overtake on turn 13. It's going to put him on the back foot coming down to the last corner, which is pretty crucial for carrying as much speed as you can on the straight. And these Corvettes do get good exits off these corners. It seems like the Porsche for me was a little bit faster in sort of the midsection of the course. I'm thinking about turn 7 through 9 really was kind of where the Porsche really kind of held its game. But the Corvette very fast in a straight line. You can't see really the Porsche making any ground in the draft coming up to that 3-cone marker that indicates where you probably hit the brakes at that point and take a nice amount of curb there on the inside. But yeah, Jamie Lawrence maybe just needs to be a little bit more patient with trying to work his way through the field. He's already up to 5th, so he's executed the pass on the UTA car that had the issue earlier through the kink. And now he's just got to execute a clean series of passes on Carl Lemkool and then Rahul Balaneni to get his way back up to the podium. So we'll keep an eye on that. Jamie Lawrence always liking to play this on hard mode, as we mentioned earlier. He's also the only alumni driver with a single-digit number, even though that's technically not allowed by series rules last time I checked, but he seems to get away with it somehow each week. But we'll let him continue to get away with that. He keeps on putting good shows like this one, trying to hunt down that Ford Corvette. And so back in the GT3 field, we've got Nate Olson on the tail of Alexander Klenk, about 7/10 off the tail of Sean Campbell. So still this 4-car battle for the lead.
Further on back in the field, looks like trouble for Alejandro Diaz from UC Berkeley as he's heading into turn 2 here, hard on the brakes, and just gets a little bit of that grass. Yep, you saw it right there. And the 69 machine gets swung on around there. It's back up to your GT3 leaders battling.
Yeah, so Illinois following Worcester Polytechnic, following Alexander Klenk. Klenk, no stranger to the podium, has had a couple of podiums this season. One last time out at Suzuka with Olson and Kaholich P2 and P3. But Jarrett, you know who wasn't at that race? Sean Campbell. And now that he's here, he's putting his skills on display. He did very well last week in the Oval, claiming a inaugural podium on his debut, trying to make that 2 for 2 out of 2 races that he's been in so far, and really try to take hold of a championship run maybe late in the season. With only 2 races left after this one, it's going to be a bit difficult, and you do get 1 drop race, but that's probably not going to be quite enough. We see Jamie Lawrence trying to duck out of the draft and let Carl Lemkool know that he's there, but he's tucked up right underneath that bumper going down into turn 1.
There's a fun little battle we got going on here, and you see the difference in the cars. The Corvette able to have great straight line speed, low to the ground, and we don't have it here in this season, but we saw Corey Hyatt from the Colorado School of Mines really make the Ford work, and guys unable to draft the Ford last season, and that was very cool to see. And we're seeing a little bit of it right here. You see Lemkool open that gap up on the straightaways, but then Jamie Lawrence going to close it on the back half of this track.
Yeah, it definitely looks like the Corvette's getting pretty good drive off the corners. I like the line he's taking there through turn 5, able to carry a lot of minimum apex speed, which is pretty crucial at this track. You run less wing than you do at other tracks. I know I was talking with Jeremy Rogers before the race. He was running about 6 degrees of wing on his Corvette. I know I was running something similar on the RSR in practice, and it seemed to do pretty well. So at other tracks like Suzuka and even Laguna Seca, you'll run 8, 9, even 10 degrees of wing. So just taking off 1 degree of wing is pretty helpful here. But let's see if Jamie Lawrence can't execute a inside the move here at the kink. Tricky place to do it. You really got to lift out of the throttle if you're going to be that tight up underneath the rear wing of the car in front. Looks like he did lift a fair amount, and he's going to try to challenge down into Canada corner. Got a great run off the kink, swinging left, swinging right, trying to look for that opening. There's the gap. He's going to send it down into Canada corner, late on the brakes, giving a lot of room there on the inside. Carl Lemke locking up, taking just as much track as he can get away with there, and Jamie Lawrence executes a clean inside pass in Canada corner and is going to start hunting down Rahul Balaneni, who is about 2 seconds up the field at this point, so should be no problem for Jamie in about a lap and a half probably to close up on the tail of that Ferrari.
Boy, and what a pass that was. We talked about being able to use the draft to your advantage. He poked the nose out and made it work. And it's hard to do, that late break. You see even guys in Formula One have a little bit of trouble with that. And here comes Carl Lemke trying to do the same right now. Jamie Lawrence with the early defense here. 8 minutes into this race. He's guarding that inside line, able to fend off the battle from Lemke.
Yeah, these guys need to not battle too much if they want to make their way up towards Jeremy Rogers, who's about 10 seconds up the road so far with only 5 laps under their belt. Granted, very long laps at this track, being about 2 minutes on lap times and 4 miles of track length, 14 turns. So any gaps that you see on in retrospect to like how many laps we've completed, it's going to be a little bit more exaggerated than you see at other courses. So Alejandro Diaz trying to make a move on Embry Riddle. Looks like Embry Riddle's got a little bit of damage on the right side of that car. That probably happened there at the start. Alejandro Diaz trying to regain some spots after he made that mistake through, I think it was the kink. No, it was turn 3, wasn't it, Jarrett, that he made that mistake. Another thing that kind of gets me about this track is the way they number the turns on here. Turn 1, totally normal turn. Turn 2 is pretty much non-existent, and then you go to turn 3, which is like the second actual turn on the course, Jared. I don't really know. And then turn 4 is the same thing. They don't even name it right. And then you go down to turn 5. But you know what? It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Everybody just calls them by the corner names, such as Canada Corner and Thunder Valley, Bill Mitchell Bend, and so on and so forth. And I remember listening to Monaco this weekend, Lewis Hamilton hopping on the radio yelling at his engineer, just using the corner names, because I don't know what turn 14 is at Monaco. Just call it Mirabeau or Rascats. It's way easier that way. So a nice little battle here in the GT3. This is going to be Jared Kaler trying to work his way around Embry Riddle right now on the outside, going down to turn 7 right now on your screen. Going to back out of the turn and try to wait for another day. Kind of hard to go too wide through that corner. It's off camber, really relies on a lot of downforce, and if you're coming off the outwash of the car in front, your front end will not hook up in that corner and you will run wide. And when you get on the grass out there, given that it's already off camber, very easy to spin the car, almost easier than it is at the kink, in my opinion. But now he's got a good run coming down to Canada corner, getting right up on the bumper. Going to look to the inside. Let's see for that late braking maneuver. Nope. Going to tuck back inside and wait for another opportunity. Maybe try to set up out of turn 14 and get a good exit there to try to make a pass down into turn 1.
Something I think we're seeing a little bit of is how you're able to use those ABS that the GT3s have. You saw Carl Lemke have to back out a little bit earlier than Jamie Lawrence. Jamie Lawrence able to make that Porsche work in terms of that late braking, but these guys just neck and neck right now as Kaler trying to chase down Jensen once again.
Yeah, it looks like Kaler's not so great in a straight line. That might be damaged. That's probably just rear wing angle and not taking off enough for this race. So not great straight line speed for the Charlotte machine, but we'll see if he can't execute a pass maybe in the center section. So if you've got a lot of wing on the car, your opportunities are not going to be into turn 1 or turn 3. It's going to be probably down to turn 5, 7, 8, and 9, maybe through the carousel looking down to Canada corner. That's where you really need the downforce on the car, but he is tucked up pretty well underneath that rear wing of the Mercedes, looking for a line into turn 5. Embry Riddle machine defending early, not going to give him the inside line. We'll see what Kaler can do here around the outside. Late on the brakes, going to swoop it around. No, Embry Riddle, good defense there. Going to push the Charlotte machine out wide, still side by side, going into turn 6 underneath the Corvette bridge, still side by side. The UNC Charlotte machine going to have to give up that position. Not an easy place to go too wide. These guys giving a great battle, but all the while watching the cars in front open up that gap, 6-second gap from P7 to P8, Virginia to Embry Riddle. And Jared, I might add back in here that Virginia on 110 points in the GT3 championship right now, and they're really looking to try to close that 20-point gap to the Illinois lead. Illinois' leading driver Nate Olson currently in third, looking good as well, but just behind Alexander Klink, who's 1 point behind in the championship. So as it finishes right now, even though I know we've got a long way to go in this race, probably another 20 laps or so, it looks like WPI would probably leapfrog Illinois to first place in the GT3 championship. So now we're looking at Jared Kaler. Let's see if he can get this pass done. No, he's going to go wide through the kink, gets wide into the grass, and spins the car around, as we've talked through so many times already tonight, Jarrett, and putting on a display of an example of what that looks like for us. So very unfortunate for UNC Charlotte.
Very unfortunate indeed, and he will have that one faster pair. I'm sure he didn't want to use it this early. As we look at Nate Olson, that's Michael Koholich, one of our onboard drivers. As you're looking at him right now, he sneaks by Nate Olson, and he's going to sneak up into that third position. Koholich having a pretty good run here at Road America early.
Yeah, Koholich doing really good. We've seen him have a lot of pace so far. The Angelo State driver did really well at Suzuka, but then I think he got involved at an instant. Actually, I take that back. I've got him fishing P2 on my books right now, so I guess he was pretty good at Suzuka, able to maintain that position in front of the Illinois machine. Illinois looking pretty good on the brakes. You know, one of the other things I was thinking about for Monaco this weekend was just how much guys are changing their brake bias, going for these late dive bombs into a corner. You really want to avoid, especially in the GTE cars, a front tire lockup, because that means you're almost always going to either understeer into the car that you're trying to overtake, or you're going to run wide on the corner. So if you just tune that brake bias back a little bit, then it'll help the front end to be a little bit more planted on the corner. Might make the rear end a little bit loose, but better problem to have than locking up fronts going into a corner. So Illinois getting really tight on the carousel, running wide, and then going to bring it back down tight again to get on top of the apex, trying to maximize that minimum apex speed and find a run through the kink down to Canada corner.
You see right there, almost a flawlessly executed kink by both these drivers, and that's when you're going to make a lot of speed right there. And John, as we start to think about pit stops, and I know we're only 15 minutes in, and we won't expect pit stops until about the 30 to 40 minute mark, but the field is spread out as it is. Do you just run it until it's dry, or do you start thinking about some kind of undercut here at Road America?
Definitely going to run it dry, I think, if I'm the one driving these cars. You got to really stretch it out at Road America. Tire wear, not really too much of a factor here, so guys are going to have plenty of grip throughout the session, I would say, and so fuel load's not going to be super critical. It's about half a second from full tanks to empty tanks on this lap, I would say, so not a huge benefit as we see San Diego trying to get mixed in there with Michigan Tech. And Rahul Bolognini about 5.9 seconds off Derek Atmanis. So this is going to be for the final podium spot in the alumni category. So San Diego State tucked up right underneath the Michigan Tech bumper, trying to go for these moves. We see Jamie Lawrence really pushing this car pretty hard. He's a master at this Porsche, really giving guys no quarter, hard on the brakes into turn 8, going into the carousel. Takes a little bit of gravel. You can actually get away with quite a bit there, but maybe not quite that much. That would have hurt his speed on exit a little bit, but now we see him going through the carousel, trying to set up for the kink. Canada corner, got to be looking like one of the favorite zones to pass in tonight. Couple cars executing passes down into there so far. Jamie Lawrence trying to add another one to that list. And I've coached guys here at Road America for MX5 Cup before. I remember hopping on the radio and saying, hey, it's last lap. Be thinking about where you want to make an overtake. You should probably try thinking about Canada corner. And not to toot my own horn or anything, but he did successfully execute a pass at Canada corner. The driver I was coaching, that is. So, anyways, back to Jamie Lawrence. Another UTA car off in the field. Or sorry, the same UTA car off the field. That looks like it might have been Canada corner. And yeah, I think it is. Just getting too deep in on the brakes and in the wall, in the gravel. It looks like he'd already had that car fixed up, so I don't know if he's had a pit stop yet, but either way, not great scenes for the UTA team tonight. Looks like the San Diego State team, though, having a good run trying to defend from Michigan Tech, who they must have recently overtaken down into turn 1. Michigan Tech getting way alongside, hanging around the outside, but not quite able to hang on to the speed he needs. Now we've got a three-way battle. Carl Lemkool, St. Louis looking up the inside of Michigan Tech into turn 3. Going to execute it pretty cleanly, but not get the great exit off the corner, so still side by side heading down to turn 5.
Yeah, given a lot of room was Bellini from Michigan Tech. Lemkool takes advantage, uses that inside, also gives quite a bit of room. You see the toe right here. Lemkool protects the inside. Bellini going to go around the outside. Late brakes on the Ferrari as they go side by side. Really good exit for the Ferrari. Let's see if he can capitalize as they head up the hill, trying to chase down Jamie Lawrence.
Yeah, you really need the inside line here that the Corvette has coming out, but now you need the inside line again for turn 7, one of the trickier spots that we saw Jared Kaler have an issue with earlier. Carl Lemke actually off on the grass, but probably got out of throttle and opened up the steering, able to keep it from spinning. Oh, a bit of a twitch on the entry to turn 8 for the Michigan Tech machine. I'm not sure what happened there, if he maybe caught a little bit of grass there on the entrance, or just a little bit of rear tire lockup, but the rear end of that car was not at all happy entering that corner, but he was able to keep it on track, and you can see how much of a lead Jamie Lawrence has extended on these two cars right now, probably about already looking like a 3-second lead on this battling pair. So trying to chase down Derek Ekmanis, his teammate in P2. We'll see if he can do it. He's got 7 seconds to find, though, to try to close that gap down.
Let's go back to the pass. Actually, just before this, we saw Jamie Lawrence sneak on around and off the final corner. Looks like Lawrence just getting a better run there.
Yeah, straight drag race.
And you see him
Carl
breaking that
Lemke.
track.
Yeah. Carl Lemke trying to find where the draft is going to be, too. I've got Carl Lemke sideways in the barriers out of the last corner on my screen. Not sure what... I'm betting he clipped the grass on the exit there, and I know that all too well, Jarrett, because I did the exact same mistake in the pilot seating. That carbon copy. Absolute carbon copy of what happened to me. Somebody go back and watch the tapes. That's you'll find a UTA Porsche in that wall at about this point in the race, actually. So maybe Carl Lemke will watch my onboard from that and is trying to mimic me a little bit too much. I appreciate it, Carl, but maybe save it for next time.
Yeah, he might have been watching the wrong tutorial video this week. Heading on back in the GT3 field, further on back, Thomas Toom trying to pick his way through this little bit of traffic. Cohen Evans and Parker Eaton just in front of him. A couple drivers we haven't mentioned. The new paint scheme of Matthew Nordberg back there 9th in the GT3 field. And he's trying to chase down Alex Jensen just in front of him from Embry-Riddle University. Esteban Munros, another driver. A little bit of trouble earlier. We saw him get into the wall after the kink, I believe it was. And he's trying to battle his way back up through the field.
Yeah, it looks like Max Bowie chose to pit earlier as well. Not quite sure. He may be out of this race, being 2 laps down at this point. Alejandro Diaz and Jared Kaler both still in this race. And it looks like Alexander Plank able to work his way around the lap traffic of Alejandro Diaz right now, as we're watching Jeremy Rogers carry that A&M Porsche through Thunderhill, up over turn 13, down to T14. You can see just how close he gets to the outside, uses a little bit of that extra curb to help give some extra space to get that car turned in, and then gives no quarter on exit, absolutely no ground left between that car and the grass on the outside that we saw Carl Lemke find just a lap or two ago. But you got to use all the track that you can. You paid for all of it. You better use all of it, because there is lap time to be found everywhere.
Jeremy Rogers setting the fastest lap of his day and of the day in total. You see the purple lap time across the top left of your screen. If you see green, that's a personal best, and if you see purple, that is the fastest lap of the race. So pay attention to those two throughout the time. And as we get further on into this race, at the center of your screen, you'll see each class leader. Right now, Sean D. Campbell having himself a day in that GT3 field.
I do need to stipulate that my earlier comment about you paid for all of it, you should use all of it, should not apply necessarily to the speedometer on your car. Maybe the tachometer in some cases, but if you're on a 635 Express in Dallas, I know I've seen a few guys trying to use all of their speedometer as well, in some pretty fancy cars and motorcycles too, I might add. But not to say that I have ever done that, definitely not in my M3, but see a couple guys in the chat chiming in with me. Can't recommend it. CIL does not support dangerous activities on the street. We recommend you do it in the virtual world with these guys. So come represent your school if you're watching, thinking about getting yourself into iRacing. This is a great way to do it, great group of guys to go racing with, and we can see tight battles happening on tracks. These guys respect each other and understand how they can race each other, more importantly. So we see it a lot in some other racing series, and especially just in normal iRacing, I would say, Jarrett, where you don't recognize the name that is starting next to you on the grid, and so you don't quite know how aggressive he's going to be into turn 1. These guys have been racing each other for over 2 seasons now, including the pilot season, so they kind of know what to expect in terms of how you can overtake and how aggressive you can be going into some of these areas.
Definitely, and it's always so much fun to see these guys able to dive one corner and then give the next, and we see, especially on the oval side as well, where that door-to-door racing is very frequent. But really, guys knowing when to give space, when to kind of send it in. Even the aggressive drivers are selectively aggressive, you know? You're not getting drivers that are sending it from 2 and 3 car lengths back and frustrating each other, ruining races. We haven't really had that quote unquote big wreck. Yeah, maybe it's coming, but tonight I think we're good tonight here as we venture further on back in the field. Parker Eaton closing the gap, or I believe Thomas Toomey actually snuck by Parker Eaton just a moment ago, so we'll go back and take a look at that pass.
Yeah, so the Virginia machine here on the inside of the other Lamborghini heading down to the corner. I think this is going to be down to turn 5 if I've got my references right. And we'll see how he can execute. So yeah, this is turn 5, able to swoop in around from the outside on the NC State machine and making it look really easy tonight in that Virginia Lamborghini. Lamborghini doesn't look super strong tonight in terms of straight line pace, at least, and BMW also looking to struggle a little bit in terms of straight line pace. Couple of drivers not finding that car to their liking. Cohen Evans trying to fight back against Virginia machine on the inside down to turn 3. We're going to back out of it. Probably a wise choice. Looked like Toomey had that one covered off pretty well.
So Toomey making his way up through the pack, now up to 5th in the GT3 field, and he's got Nate Olson just in front of him. As names cross your scoring tower on the left side, you'll notice some are in red, some are in blue, and there's a little green icon next to one of the driver's positions. The green icon is the car you're currently looking at, and then a red name signifies a driver a lap ahead of the currently selected driver, and a blue name, the exact opposite, a lap or more behind the currently selected driver. So if you're wondering why the names constantly keep changing colors, hopefully that clears it up for you a little bit as we watch this 3-car battle continue to rage on between Toomey, Eaton, and Evans.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing kind of happen here, Jarrett, is just how sort of homogenous the setups have been for this race. I would expect to see a little bit more variability in end of straight speed among these cars, but looks like guys are pretty much all running very similar levels of downforce. Nobody really taking big risks and taking out a lot of wing compared to their competitors to try to find some more exit speed. Looks like Virginia a little bit wide out of turn 7, able to keep it gathered up and online for turn 8. A little bit wide in turn 8, but not too bad. This is going to put NC State in a good position coming through the kink and going down to our favorite passing corner of the night, Canada corner. Getting real close mid-corner. Got some good minimum apex speed coming off the corner. Gets on top of the apex. Takes a little bit of curve there on the exit. We'll see what he can do coming through the kink here. Looking back underneath the wing of the Virginia Lamborghini. NC State still really hot on the tail. Not closing too much, though. Draft not doing him any favors right now. Probably not going to be able to execute this pass down in Canada corner unless it's an absolute dive bomb. They're both on the brakes. NC State blinking in and out a little bit, so no go for NC State on that move. And IUPUI still back there as well, hanging on to the tail end of this battle. This is your tightest battle on the field right now. All these cars separated by less than half a second. And Virginia, though, still on top. We've got Alejandro Diaz, who's going to be lap traffic coming up, so we'll see if that plays in this battle at all.
Down the front straightaway, all 3 cars in a line as they try to break up that air. And another thing to think about, we haven't really talked about it, John briefly mentioning it, dirty air versus clean air. As Cohen Evans thinks about going inside, Eaton blocks it on off and retains that position to the inside groove, and he just closed all the way up on Toomey right there. But as the car breaks up the air in front of you, it's not going to go over the front of your car as smoothly as it would without a car in front of you. So guys might be getting a little tight in the corners. Car doesn't want to turn as good as it would, but really none of the drivers struggling with that so far.
Yeah, it looks like Parker Eaton's car is set up pretty well on the brakes. He's got a lot of stability and a lot of confidence on the brakes. We'll see just how much he closes up on the Virginia machine into turn 5 and is able to carry quite a bit of that speed into the apex. Oh, a little bit wide there on the exit. Probably going to lose the position to the IUPUI machine, so a little bit wide off that corner. I'm not sure if that was just too much lateral load or if he tipped a tire into the dirt. I'd have to take another look at that one. But the BMW for Cohen Evans inheriting 6th place, so it's another look at. Yeah, I think he just drifted a tire into that gravel, and that's all it took for him to get a little bit sideways on exit. But I've many a time in practice spun my car at that exact corner doing the same thing, so for him to be able to keep it gathered up in a straight line for the most part on track, I would send applause his way for that one. But tucked back up underneath the BMW's rear wing, going to try to regain that position going through the kink, but not seeing the draft play as much as I anticipated initially, Jared, for this race.
Yeah, definitely not. I think when the race started, we thought GT3 cars might be all linked together. They have the ABS.
Yeah.
We've seen guys be linked up in GT3s at other tracks earlier this season. So I think it's kind of surprising we aren't seeing guys close the gap in the draft, maybe slink away, but then you find another long straightaway to close up in that gap. So interesting to see that this is really the only big grouping of cars out on the track right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised by that too. I remember we were watching Suzuka, 2 weeks ago now at this point, and there was a couple big groupings of cars throughout that field, and I would have expected it harder to follow the car in front at that track. It's much more downforce dependent and less of a drafting track outside of the main straightaway. As we ride on board with the Angelo State University machine out there in San Angelo, Texas. A couple of Texas cars in the field. Got Jeremy Rogers from A&M still leading that GTE field, 12-second gap to San Diego State, 12 seconds behind again, and then another 1.5 seconds from Derek McManus back to his teammate Jamie Lawrence at the GTE field. But yeah, Angelo State doing really well to hold on to the bottom podium position right now, P3. But Nate Olson looking for that position, trying to regain that podium. I think Koholich stole it from him maybe a lap or two ago. But in terms of grid position as they run, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 in your GT3 field are all as they started.
And you see on the onboard the amount of input that Koholich is putting into these corners, and you'll see it on the kink, just how he handles it. Some guys like a lot of input, some guys like a little, and you can tune your car kind of accordingly to adjust to that. But Koholich keeping Olson behind him up there in P3 for the GT3s and having another good run. Remember a couple weeks ago I picked him as my pick to win as the new guy. He came away up in that top 5, so Koholich no stranger to the front of the pack here in the CIL.
Something I like from watching Koholich's onboard is just how consistent he is with the steering through the carousel. He's trying to pick more or less one steering angle and just let it sit there and just use the rotation of the car on the throttle and the brakes to maintain the attitude of the car through the corner. I tend to think that's probably indicative of a very positive setup, meaning the front end of the car is hooked up and the rear end tends to just kind of follow the front somewhat lazily, but it means that you can definitely nail the apex every time. So pretty nice setup on the on the Koholich car tonight, trying to be chased down by Nate Olson, dropping back a little bit. It looks like very similar lap times last time around. Nate Olson about 0.05 seconds slower than Angelo State that last lap by, but pretty much nothing in it at this time. So Parker Eaton for NC State trying to close up back underneath IUPUI, who he lost that position to at turn 5 maybe a lap and a half ago. Still not quite there, and we see Thomas Toomey in front stretching a little bit of an advantage, 1.8 seconds as we go through turn 3 right now, but not stretching it as much as Jamie Lawrence has been stretching his lead over Rahul Bolinetti. Jamie Lawrence now less than a second underneath P2 in that GTE field.
Flashing on up to that battle, you see the San Diego State machines flying down the front straightaway. Derek McManus in the majority white car, and the majority black car is Jamie Lawrence right behind him. So good little contrast for teammates there between Ekmanis and Lawrence. And they're going to try and chase down Rogers. Like you said, John, 14 seconds separating the two of them. I think they're going to need a little more than the draft to help them out here tonight.
Yeah, they're going to need a absolute miracle. Jeremy Rogers, typically not very mistake prone, but he has made them before. He's made them mostly in the pit stops, I want to say, or entering the pits, I want to say it. I'm going to forget the race, so I'm not even going to attempt to try to call out which race it was. But generally, not very mistake prone and tends to run a pretty clean race. So Jamie Lawrence, Derek McManus, those guys have their workload cut out for them in a pretty strong way. So back to NC State, trying to get around IUPUI again to get back after that Virginia machine. Virginia's still only sitting about 1.7, 1.8 up the road from this two battling it out, but that Lamborghini just doesn't have the pace coming off of the carousel and through the kink to get up alongside into Canada Corner. So not as easy to overtake as we initially thought. Taking a lot of grass there actually on the inside for that BMW. Technically, I think that corner tends to throw the car outside a little bit more if you take that much curve. I tend to stay away from that curve a fair amount. Everybody taking just about the right amount of curve there on the exit of turn 14 though. Long climb up the hill. If anybody's ever walked this track, it is an absolute trek to get around. I think I took a golf cart when I walked it, because no way I'm walking 4 miles carrying a bunch of race gear and a bunch of water bottles for all my drivers or anything like that. But absolute beautiful track up there in Wisconsin. If anybody gets the chance to attend IndyCar or IMSA or any race that goes there, I highly recommend it. So many great places to watch from. You can sit up on top of the hill at turn 7 and see the exit of turn 6, turn 7, and then the entrance of turn 8, and even part of the carousel from there. So highly recommend it. And then if you look on the back stretch going through the kink, it almost reminded me when I was standing there, Jarrett, of looking through flute plots at the Nürburgring. It almost looks image for image like it. It's pretty amazing, but beautiful track up here in Wisconsin.
A gorgeous track and a fun one to watch a race at too. You can sit in a multitude of places as you see Matthew Nordberg down hard on the brakes, and that's a good spot to watch. Plenty of passing opportunities right there. We've seen tonight at Canada Corner as well, another fun little spot. But as we just crossed the halfway point of this race, 33 minutes in, the white flag will wave after the leader takes the presumed to be last lap of what iRacing deems as 1 hour. So we'll keep you as best in tune with that as we can. But I imagine we're going to see pit stops here shortly. And as we start to think about that, as we watch the GT3 battle, do you think maybe guys were saving fuel in that draft, John?
I sure hope they were, because that would provide them with a massive advantage when it comes to pit stops. And so Alexander Clank is probably going to be in a little bit of an advantaged position compared to Campbell. Campbell trying to fake a pit entrance right there, it looks like, in combination with breaking the toe. Sometimes you can try to fake that pit entrance and get the guy to try to execute the undercut, which is almost not, probably not very successful here if you've been saving fuel, which I suspect Clank has. But yeah, still 2 Mercedes up at front. Not Hamilton, not Bottas, but Campbell and Clank at the front of your field. And yeah, so I would bet that Clank is saving quite a bit of fuel. A lot of lift and coast in the corners. So the way you save fuel is via 2 methods on these cars. You can either turn down the engine a little bit. They've got a couple different settings you can use to save fuel throughout a race. Or you can do some lift and coast in the corner. So before you get to the braking zone, you lift at, for example, at turn 5, maybe about the 3 board, and then get on the brakes at the 2 board as compared to going straight from throttle to brake. So that'll help to save just incremental amounts of fuel over the course of a lap, and at the end of 18 laps, that can add up to being an extra 2 or 3 laps of fuel in the tank, which is massively helpful. And not only is it helpful in that way, you also get to put less fuel in when you finally make your pit stop, because it is a fixed distance or fixed time race anyways. So it can probably save you about 2.5 to 3 seconds in the pits if you're able to save fuel here, I'd bet.
Yeah, and that long pit lane, instead of that long front stretch of just wide open throttle, you're going to lose time on pit road, and you can only lose as little as possible, especially when the gap is this close, 0.7 of a second separating first and second. Drivers on pit lane now. You see that on the left side of your screen. Jacob G. Watson on pit lane. Raul Bellanini also on pit lane. I believe we also saw Thomas Toomey in pit lane. We did a 21.13 second stop for that machine.
Yeah, so Toomey was leading that 3-car battle involving Parker Eaton and Cohen Evans in GT3, so opting to go a little bit early on pit strategy. 35 minutes into this race, I bet they could probably stretch it out to 40 to 42 minutes, maybe even 45 minutes in terms of raw fuel, but maybe just trying to opt to get a little bit more clean air. Maybe he was catching up some traffic in front and wanted to avoid that. So always better to keep a little bit of clean air on the nose of the car, especially coming out of the pits after you've let your tires cool down a little bit. Car balance is going to change as you add fuel to the car, so easier to manage that when you've got a clean nose to look at in front of you. So on board with Clank right now, about a second behind Sean Campbell for Randolph, and Clank's been managing this race pretty well so far. No mistakes really from this leading pair in the GT3 field. Sean Campbell also running a very clean race. And then Nate Olson trying to, again, hunt down Michael Kaholich for that final podium position. These 2 Lamborghinis, nose to tail going through turn 3, going down through turn 4, the non-existent turn 4, I'll add again, and then down to turn 5. And I bet this pass is, if anything, going to be executed in the pits, Jarrett.
I think so, and you said it, every drop of fuel going to matter. Do you get just enough to cross the start finish line? Do you put in a little bit extra in case it goes an extra lap? Guys trying to calculate that in their heads. A lot of guys having some kind of virtual fuel calculator. But it all depends when that GTE leader crosses the line for the white flag, whether we do that extra lap or not. And guys have gotten burned on that in the past. So it'll be curious if we see guys maybe run out of fuel by putting just enough to go to the finish, then getting that, in essence, one extra lap as Jamie Lawrence heading down pit lane.
Yeah, if there's any track where that's going to happen, it's going to be Road America because it's such a long lap around here, 4 miles, over 2 minutes. So you use a lot of fuel over the course of a lap, so you have to be very accurate with your fuel calculations on this. It's nearly a full gallon burned for the Porsche RSR. Oh, Illinois, wide out of the corner there, or is that Virginia? Actually, no, that is Illinois. Nate Olson wide out of the kink, probably lost a little bit of front grip, going to drop off the back. Michael Koholich probably lost about a second and a half of doing that. Very impressive save from him, though, I might add. Very tricky to keep the car in a straight line when you take that much grass there on exit. Now we're watching Parker Eaton again trying to execute a pass into Canada corner. Pretty close, I think closer than he's ever been, but maybe still not quite close enough. Going to look to the inside. Is Cohen Evans going to give him the space? He does give him a bit of space, but still going to get a better exit off the corner. BMW still in front, going through Thunder Hill. Lamborghini trying to look around the outside. Nothing doing there through turn 13. Turn 14, the only one left on this lap. Trying to set up for turn 1, I would bet here. Trying to back off a little bit and get a good exit off the corner. Both of them staying out. Or no, did we see a car going in the pits there? Yes, Parker Eaton into the pits. Trying to execute an undercut on Cohen Evans. We'll see if he's able to get it done.
Also on pit lane, Alexander Klink. So we're seeing a couple of different strategies. Matthew Nordberg heading to pit lane as well. But drivers staying out in the student class, Sean D. Campbell, Michael Koholich, Nate Olson. The top 3 all stay out. Cohen Evans joining them as well.
Yeah, Cohen Evans staying out on that lead lap, trying to stretch whatever advantage he had over Parker Eaton and maintain that. And we'll see where Parker Eaton comes out of the pits. He's probably going to come out just behind Toomey. I would bet maybe about 3 or 4 seconds off the tail of Toomey as we look at the Illinois machine of Nate Olson right now on your screen. So, yeah, NC State in the pits and now on board with IUPUI still on track going down to turn 5 right now. So, IUPUI about 18 seconds off of Nate Olson as it runs. Nick Daly on the timing board, you see there that 38-second number. That's going to be off the tail of Rahul Bolaneni in 5th position for the GTEs. They do it by category of cars. So, time for that car is a little bit different than some of the other ones around, but Cohen Evans still on our screen right now, going through turn 7, turn 9, and then Sean Campbell still maintaining a pretty good gap up front, but it looks like, who was behind Campbell earlier, Jared? Because he had Alexander Klink just up underneath him, didn't he? So okay, yeah, Klink just came out of the pits, and so we'll see where he feeds out with Sean Campbell after he makes his pit stop.
Yeah, so Campbell going to need to do what Klink does and better. Alexander Klink spent 58 seconds on pit lane, 17 of those in the pit box. And here goes Campbell. Now we'll see if he can beat it.
Yeah, Campbell into pit lane. Takes the fast lane in there, trying to carry as much speed as you can. I always recommend guys practice this pit entrance because you can be pretty late on the brakes, and all this time counts. So if you can shave off 0.2 of a second, that's a pretty fast pit stop if you can manage it. But yeah, into the pit box, hard on the brakes, getting stopped, getting that fuel in the car. Nobody taking tires today, I would bet. Not enough time on the table. A&M getting stuck behind the BMW, coming into pit lane. Not a great show. I probably would have stayed out if I was Jeremy Rogers if I could, but that would probably mean that he's definitely out of fuel if he's in the pit lane after that BMW. You don't really want to be stuck behind the tail of another car. So Alexander Klink coming up the main straight now. This is going to be the race for the lead in the student category. Passes the start-finish line right just about now. And so we'll see where Sean Campbell exits the pits. He's going to be on the pit limiter coming out into turn 1. Alexander Klink's going to have warm tires and a good understanding of how he can push his car coming out of this pit. But looks like Sean Campbell, for now, able to retain the lead in the student battle.
Great pit for Sean D. Campbell. He spends 58 seconds on pit lane, 18 seconds in his pit box. So actually just a tad longer than Alexander Klink, and maybe put more fuel in. You heard that 1 second longer of a pit stop. So is Klink maybe running exactly what he needs to and nothing more? We'll find out here soon. But Sean Campbell holds on to lead for now. We'll keep you locked in on this battle for the time being. Jeremy Rogers running away with it. Now out to a 20-second gap on the GTE field.
Yeah, and it looks like Derek Ekmanis has pitted. Jamie Lawrence has probably not pitted in that GTE field, so I would expect Jamie Lawrence to probably challenge Derek Ekmanis for that second position at the end of the night. But either way, San Diego State still going to come off with second place points no matter who takes it at the end of the night, because both the team's championship and the individual points championship matter. But I think everybody really wants to see their school take home the win at any point in the season. So Sean Campbell for Randolph, closely followed by WPI Machine, driven by Alexander Klenk, 7/10 separating them through the kink. See just how much speed that Campbell is carrying through the kink. Here's your pit stop strategy, and you can see where Nick Daly had that early pit stop on lap 8 after having, I think, a spin through the kink. Everybody else pitting relatively the same laps. Rogers and Ekmanis both on lap 20. Lawrence and Bolonetti, 1 lap difference, 18 and 17. And then that 1 lap difference between Campbell and Klenk, 19th and 18th. So the undercut, not successful for Klenk on this outing, but at other tracks I would expect to be maybe a little bit more successful, where you were able to save maybe a little bit more fuel. But kind of surprised Klenk wasn't able to save as much fuel as I thought he was, given that he's been underneath that rear wing of that Mercedes for so long. I don't know, Jarrett, what do you think there?
It could be twofold as well, though. He could be saving fuel and added that extra lap as well, and maybe that's why we saw the time just down a little bit from what Campbell had to do. But I'm still surprised he didn't cut the gap to Campbell any more than this, about 7/10 of a second. But we'll see if he's maybe saving something there at the end, maybe saving a little bit of rubber on those race tires or not. But staying in the drafted leader, never a bad option. As you see on the right side of your screen, the track map with the first 3 letters of each driver's last name out there on the track, and you can get a good gauge of how full this racetrack is after those pit stops.
Yeah, chat saying that they thought Toomey was going to overtake Evans coming out that pit stop. I thought so too, but not the case. It looks like, again, a situation of the undercut not being powerful enough for the cars to be able to execute that pass in the pit lane. So Cohen Evans currently in 5th for IUPUI. Thomas Toomey, actually I think Toomey was in front before the pits, and then it was Cohen Evans and then Parker Eaton. So it looks like that order has changed around a little bit. So Cohen Evans currently leading that group of 3, about 1.7 back to the Virginia car driven by Thomas Toomey, and then another 2.6 back to the NC State machine driven by Parker Eaton. So pretty well executed strategy, it looks like, for the IUPUI machine. And it looks like Jamie Lawrence able to work his way around Rahul Bolaneni into turn 5. So not quite sure if, I guess Jamie has not pitted yet. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jarrett, but he no,
I am going to correct you. He has pitted on lap 18, yep.
He did pit, so something must have happened to that car to be 12 seconds off of Derek Ekmanis, because I expect him to be quite a lot closer at this stage. So this must be what happened here. You queued it up perfectly for me. And what did we talk about dipping 2 wheels on the grass of that corner and keeping that throttle in? That's exactly what happens. Able to keep it out of the wall, so no damage done to that car. So pretty lucky there. Still a little bit of diff lock up on the exit there, trying to get into reverse gear. But yeah, unfortunate for SDSU. Still good news for him, though. Derek Ekman is still hanging on to 2nd position. That's probably not going to change anytime soon. So still a good, healthy helping of points for the San Diego team tonight. This is the battle for the lead in the GT3 field, the student field, the green banners on these cars. Randolph followed by WPI down to turn 5. Alexander Klenk is not somebody I want to have on my bumper all race long. He's kind of like having Daniel Ricciardo in your mirrors. You know he's going to go for that move, and he's going to try to make it stick. You just don't know when it's going to come. So Sean Campbell, having not raced Alexander Klenk yet, maybe not knowing that, so might be racing this guy with a little bit more aggression than I probably would. I'd be pretty defensive against the WPI machine if he was in my mirrors.
And we'll see how that plays out in these next 15 minutes. This is money time right now. You talked about the long laps, and sometimes it's hard to stay focused with those longer laps. There's so many corners, there's so many straightaways where you can kind of wander in your mind a little bit. But these guys up at the front, the WPI machine and the Randolph Community College Mercedes, both nailing every single apex, not missing a beat. And we'll see, does somebody make a mistake? Does Klenk force Campbell into that mistake? Or does Campbell continue to run this near perfect race?
Yeah, and you know, that kind of shows in the gap back to the Angelo State machine, about 7 seconds back right now off of this pair. So these guys having executed pretty much a perfect race and not making any mistakes so far, able to gain 7 seconds over the course of the race so far with just over 10 minutes left to go in the session. So You know, there's a couple guys doubting Clank in this chat if he can make this pass happen or not. Don't doubt him too much, guys. He's got plenty of time left in this race to do something. He might just be waiting for the right moment, waiting for Sean Campbell to make a mistake. Sean Campbell's still new to the series, as we just mentioned, so nobody really knows how we want to deal with the new driver on the block, but the rookie making it look really easy out there for the time being. But still a couple battles going on behind. Alex Jensen and Parker Eaton in a battle right now for 8th and 9th. Thomas Toomey and Cohen Evans still in that battle for 5th and 6th. No battles currently that I can see on my screen for the GTE field. And Clank just set the fastest GT3 lap that I've seen on my counter so far. So I'm going to take a look at that one, a 206.381. I just looked at Sean D. Campbell's fast lap. It was a 206.386. set on as early as lap 3, so nothing in it between this pair as they head down to turn 5.
So you hear just how exact those lap times are between the two of them when they're on. So if Campbell can have no mistakes, he's got it in the bag. We'll see if Clink maybe pushes a little more, maybe finds a 1/10 of a second out there on the track. And that's so hard to do. 50 minutes into this race, the car's low on fuel, so it's going to step out a little bit more. But you're also able to see these guys work it in that fastest lap time. Trouble for Carl Lemkool back here as we take a peek at what just happened for the GTE machine. And just out a little bit in that gravel.
Ooh.
And hard
That's twice
into the
for
tire
him tonight.
barrier.
Yeah, that's twice for him tonight. Unfortunate for St. Louis not having a great race, and that's actually going to promote UTA up to a top 5 position right now. So while it might have been a little bit more unfortunate for a race than UTA machine might have hoped, he's still able to hang on to that top 5 finish. But we might have a little bit of a battle between these two in the closing stages of the race, just under 11 minutes left. So maybe a Corvette on Porsche battle, but a little bit of damage on that Corvette going to hamper him. So now we're taking a look at the Virginia machine. Thomas Toomey again on Cohen Evans. Matthew Norgard about 8 seconds off of this battle, so not probably going to be able to challenge with the time left in this race. But Cohen Evans doing a great job of defending, trying to make that BMW faster than it might otherwise be. A lot of guys not quite liking the balance on that BMW. Cohen Evans able to make it work for him, but they're about 22 seconds off of Nate Olson, who's still trying to challenge for that final podium position with Michael Koholich, and about 3 seconds off of his bumper. But Thomas Toomey, we've seen him get a little bit unlucky in a lot of races this season, and I think it's about time that he found some good luck, I think, Jarrett.
Yeah, definitely. We saw him involved in that wreck last week at Suzuka, and just no fault of his own, just unable to avoid it, unable to roll the dice the correct way, so to speak. But Thomas Toomey in the tow right now of Cohen Evans. We'll see if he can make a move, and you see the closing speed of that Lamborghini on the BMW. And with about 10 minutes to go, you're thinking in your mind 5, maybe 6 laps that you got to make a move. And do you wait and make the move later, or do you try and make the move now and keep him back there? I think I'm going to choose the former of those options. You wait, you see maybe if you're Thomas Toomey, where's Cohen Evans a little bit slower? Where can I maybe sneak in a bumper? And then you make that move with maybe 2 to go. John?
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. Toomey not really showing a hand until now. Looks like the BMW was a little bit slow off to turn 3. He was able to slot it up the inside into turn 5. Cohen Evans does not want to give up the position. Toomey's going to be a little compromised off the exit, but still able to hang on to it. But I don't think this battle is done. Cohen Evans was really holding on to his own in that battle for most part of the last few laps or so. So don't count that BMW out yet. The IUPUI machine can still fight back and retain that top 5. But yeah, in general, Jarrett, I would probably agree with you. I'm probably going to wait for maybe the last 5 minutes of the race, maybe the last 3 laps to really make a pass happen, knowing that pretty much anything can happen in these races. So the later it happens, probably the more spectacular it looks too on camera, I would bet. And all these guys wanted to put on a good show. But now we go back to your GT3 student leaders. Clank right underneath the tail of that Mercedes yet again. We've got a little bit of traffic just in front from the University of Queensland machine out there all the way in Australia, maybe suffering from a little bit of sleep deprivation for this race. And also, Jarrett, I know we talked about Carl Lemke at the start of the race having suffered from food poisoning the night before, and still a little bit from that today. So, you know what? This is a little bit of a throwaway race for the St. Louis machine. But good news for him is he gets a drop. And also, one thing I'm noticing, a little bit of damage on the front end of Clank's car. Noticed it earlier, didn't mention it at the time, but I think that's actually affecting him a little bit in this battle. It's kind of keeping him from closing up underneath that rear wing of the leading Mercedes.
Certainly looks that way, especially on these long straightaways. And in the back of your screen, you see Jeremy Rogers, the GTE leader, that alumni leader, looking on in this battle between Campbell and Klink. And as they approach the traffic right here, not going to do it in a good spot. They might catch Watson in either the kink or the carousel, it's looking like. And that's not really a passing zone. We'll see if he pulls over and lets them by, or if they kind of just get butted up. But either way, this is great news for Klink.
Yeah, everybody on the flashers trying to let Watson know that they're going to be right behind him. Not doing it yet. We'll see if the opportunity happens through the carousel. Not a great place to let cars go by. Yeah, so guys getting real angry on the radio right now, asking these guys to move out of the way and let the faster traffic by. It looks like he does in the carousel. It's probably one of the worst spots to do it, though. Not very easy spot to do it either, because you really want to maintain that speed through that corner. And you can see Watson suffering from that maneuver there as well on the outside of the corner. So these guys battle still raging on. Kaholich was on the radio there, asking Jacob to get out of the way as these cars came through. So Jeremy Rogers tucked up in this battle now, of course in a different class. You see it by the red windshield banner on that A&M Corvette, trying to maintain that 22-second lead over Derek Ekmanis. Is going to try to work his way around this battle, probably going to wait for the pit straight, I would bet. No sense in risking that now. Actually Klink a little bit wide out of turn 13, but Jeremy Rogers is going to tuck up underneath that bumper and probably execute a pass on both these cars going down to turn 1. So here we will see the power differential and the straight line speed differential between the two classes. So Klink actually diving in underneath. Yeah, let's go, Klink. I like it. So trying to steal the draft away from the GTE car so he can close back up on Campbell. Campbell might be a little compromised going into turn 1 by the outwash from Rogers' car, actually.
And Klink, who'd fall into about 4 or 5 tenths of a second, now right back to 3. So good job for Klink. He's able to close the gap just a bit. Rogers able to sneak on through, and he should be off to the races. 23 seconds ahead of Derek Ekmanis and Jamie Lawrence. But the battle raging on between Campbell and Klink. We're going to stay locked in on this student battle. 5 minutes to go here. And like you said, Klink unable to get it done in these straightaways. So I'm starting to think, if I'm the crew chief of the 13 machine, of the Klink machine, I got to tell him we got to get it done in a corner. Find whatever corner Campbell's a little bit slower. Maybe Campbell's entering a little bit late. Poke your nose in there. Make him think about you a little bit. You got to do something different here with a couple laps to go.
Yeah, you know, I was right on board with Klink's car earlier during practice, trying to look and get a feel for his car setup. It looked like it had a little bit of mid-corner understeer and then a little bit of corner exit oversteer. So that's going to be a combination of adjustments that he cannot do at this stage. That's kind of locked into the handling setup, but that's probably an anti-roll bar adjustment or a differential adjustment, and then a rear bump damping adjustment to try to get it settled a little bit more on throttle. Still able to carry a good amount of speed there through the kink, but I'm riding on board with him right now. He's working pretty hard at that steering wheel, so I don't think that car's quite got the balance that he's looking for in this race, which is probably hampered by the fact that he's got a car in front of him the entire race. So he does not have clean air flowing over the front bumper of that car. At this stage, I would actually be expecting these cars to be overheating, but lucky for us, it's iRacing. We don't have to worry about that too much, but a big mistake through turn 13 for Klink. He's going to drop back to close to a second off the rear bumper. Still going to be in the draft from there, but a rare mistake we see from Klink come through turn 13. So he just gets a little bit of understeer, it looks like there, and takes that curve a little bit too aggressively. I think I call that out in my track guides that I put out, but that curve not nice to the cars, and we see a lot of slip angle in the car coming through turn 14 there. Able to close back up to underneath half a second, or just over half a second, before they get to turn 1. So about 3/10 actually he gained on that straight. That's going to be Parker Eaton in the NC State machine, wide off the kink. Let's take a look. They went side by side. Michigan Tech touches the front end of that Lamborghini and just pushes them a little bit wide in the corner. So a little bit of multi-class action, and the NC State machine coming off for the worse.
And Parker Eaton going to lose to a position to Alex Jensen in that battle. Jensen, thanking his lucky stars, he stays out of the way of the GTE Ferrari and picks up that sort of freebie right there, sliding up into 8. Back to your leaders, Campbell and Klink. Still a gap, and it's a gap that Campbell's starting to open a little bit. You see it now up to almost half a second after that mistake by Klink. We said it. Who's going to blink first? Right now, Alexander Klink. And we'll see if Sean Campbell makes a mistake of his own or if he continues to run this wonderful race.
Yeah, Campbell doing something that we don't see a lot of rookie drivers knowing how to do, and that's not driving in your mirrors too much. It's very easy when you got a car behind you, especially for this length of time, and especially when you've only got 3 minutes to go in the race, to try and be too focused on the mirrors. And when you do that, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to miss upshifts even. You're going to let it hit the red line on the straight. You're going to miss your braking zones. And Campbell not really susceptible to any of that so far. So the rookie in the field becoming the person that everybody's trying to target as we go into Canada corner, excuse me. Don't even know the turn number for it. It's probably turn 12 if turn 13 follows it. But yeah, this two Mercedes battle up here at the front. Actually, Campbell taking a lot of entrance curb there and keeping it all under wraps into turn 14. Really not putting a wheel wrong, hooking up with that apex perfectly. The MX-5 guys like to put a wheel on the inside of the curb there and kind of hook it around the corner. Seeing a couple toe links breaking that way though, so a little bit of a risk maneuver. Not doing that in the GT3 cars. They will almost definitely break something if they try to stick a wheel on the inside of that corner. But now we're running back down to turn 1. We see Campbell in the center of the track trying to get a little bit of advantage out of the toe, or sorry, break the toe a little bit to the following car of Alexander Klenk.
So I thought we were going to get a look on Carl Lempool passing Nicholas Daly, but it looks like iRacing not going to cooperate here for that. So we're going to go right back to your GT3 battle going on. But let's get a quick check of Jeremy Rogers, where he's at on track, because he is going to dictate that white flag lap.
Yeah, one thing I'm noticing about Jeremy Rogers is that despite the massive lead that he's got over the rest of the field, he's still taking his normal line. He's still pushing just as much as he probably ever would, even if he was battling hard for position. You can see just how much of a space he's leaving on the outside of that corner there. He did have a small mistake a couple laps ago where he ran a 2:04.5, but then the next lap around he was back onto pace at a 2:01.7. 5-1. So as he's going to bring us close to that InnoVetted white flag lap, Jarrett, what do you think? What do we think we're going to see at the front of that GT3 battle? 8/10 off the lead is Klenk still trying to fight down Campbell. I don't know, Jarrett. I'm getting kind of skeptical to see if Klenk can get this one done.
Yeah, I think he's just too far back to make a move. He's going to need a mistake from Campbell. Otherwise, it's Campbell's race to lose at this point, I think. We haven't seen Campbell make a mistake yet, but we see him pushing very hard, using all the track. You mentioned that earlier. He's definitely listening. It's paying off for him. First in that GT3 field.
Yeah, Jared, why don't we ride on board with Klenk here as we come down to probably the last lap or two. Watch him try to chase down that Mercedes just in front of him, and that's going to be a tall order for this crew. So we're on the nose cam here. You see just how low this car is to the ground. Nothing doing in terms of suspension ride height. And we got that onboard shot coming on. So we see the dashboard on there, which gear he's in, the shift lights up on top, the rev counter as well. So he's going to be pulling for that upshift now, getting into 5th gear. 135 miles an hour. He's going to be at about 155 at this end of the straight if he's got enough, got no damage on the car. And actually with the draft, he's getting closer to 160. So the draft still pretty powerful in these cars, but looks like Campbell's car has got plenty of straight line speed as well. Now we're coming through turn 3, going down to turn 2 again, through the non-existent turn 2, into turn 3, down a couple of gears, into 2nd gear, trying to get all of the power down he can on the exit here, into 3rd, minimize the wheel spin off the corner. You can see a little bit of lights flashing on the dash to indicate just a little bit of traction control being activated on the exit of that corner. Still nothing doing in terms of gap to Sean Campbell, still about 6/10 off the bumper. Campbell taking the shortest line possible in front of him, and Klenk breaking very deep down into 1st gear for turn 5 and into 2nd early. You see a lot of oversteer mid-corner. That was that late 1st gear downshift, knocking the rear end loose. Now into 2nd, trying to manage the oversteer on the exit of this corner. A little bit of neutral steer through that. Now turn 7, tricky corner. Seen him fight the car through here a fair amount. Not too much of that this time. Pretty smooth on the steering. Still underneath that rear wing, breaking out that 2 board, getting down the gears into 2nd gear for turn 8, trying to fight the oversteer down the exit. Still some neutral steer. Very loose car here on the exit we've got for the WPI team. And still into carousel, picking that steering angle, trying to hold it there. Feed in the throttle when you can. Take the shortest line through the corner you can. Don't run out too wide on exit. That was just wide enough. Barely keeping it on track for WPI is. And then we're turning it into the kink. You can see just how much speed they're carrying. 140 mile an hour minimum speed through one of the sketchiest corners in all of North America. Still nothing doing, nothing gained on that lap between Sean Campbell and Klenk. Down to Canada corner, breaking at that 3 board, down to 2nd gear. Try to minimize that apex distance. Use all that curve there on the exit again. Still not close enough for a move. This isn't quite white flag territory yet, I think, Jarrett, but it's getting close.
It is actually the InnoVetted Labs white flag here. So Klenk, one more corner to get it done. Looks like Campbell's going to hold on, and he is going to win here at Road America, but it was that close. 0.6 of a second separating Campbell and Klink, but Campbell gets it done. What a race for him. And Klink sets the fastest lap in the GT3s there on the final lap.
Gotta love that. I'd like to watch that lap back again. I guess that was the one we were right on board with too. So what a lap to be a part of, and but just not able to get it done on Campbell. So Campbell with a strong showing for his first race, not quite done yet. Actually, no, I take that back. This is an interclass battle. So Carl Lemkel just going to work his way around Parker Eaton. Neither of these two guys having the night they would have hoped for when they first set out here. So Carl Lemkel having a couple issues, and Parker Eaton, I think, just got touched by, I want to say it was Rahul Balanetti going into the kink on that last couple of laps and ran wide into the wall there. So IUPEI machine able to hang on to a top 6 position for that team, and he's going to cross the line now. Still, you're sorry, actually up front you've got Derek Ekmanis in the 2nd position for the GTE class, and then Jamie Lawrence. So a double podium for San Diego State.
These drivers wrapping on up. You're watching Parker Eaton come to the start-finish line side by side with Carl Lemkel as they wrap things on up. Matthew Nordberg making his way to the finish, and Jared Kaler as well. Kaler, a little bit of a struggle here tonight. He's going to finish 10th in the GT3. Pretty down there overall. A tough race for him. But joining us up here in the booth now is our GTE winner, and that's going to be Jeremy Rogers, who's circling around the track for one more time. Jeremy, you got a copy?
Yep, I'm here.
So we saw you once again run away, and it looked like you had a blast here at Road America. Take us through the race from your side.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take advantage of the weeks that Teddy isn't here because he's got us all pretty much beat. But yeah, my strategy was basically just try and run away and hide.
Well, it seemed like it certainly worked for you. How much fuel do you have here in the car at the end? I saw we saw you take a pit stop pretty much when everybody else was. How much fuel you have to put in, and how much you end up with?
I could run another lap actually. I overfueled it.
Oh man, so it probably could have been a 24-second gap there at the end if you wanted to.
Yeah, Jared asked me for an extra lap, so I gave it to him.
Well, that was kind of you. So, anything else from this race that kind of caught your eye? Not too many people making mistakes out there, but a couple through the kink. You have any accidents you had to avoid throughout the night?
No, I saw pretty much nothing. It was very, very clean from where I was. Smaller field tonight and a much, much bigger track than what we've been at, so I didn't really see much of anything. I was just trying to keep clean, keep banging in 201s or low 202s, and just try and get away.
Yeah, well, we certainly executed that. What did you do for car setup on this one? You have to change too much, kind of soften up the car a little bit for some of these slower corners, or take some wing out to make sure you get that end of straight speed?
Yeah, lower downforce for sure, and then I tightened up the diff to kind of counteract that a bit. I was very tight and loose off last week, less so this week. I was trying to point it into the apex a little bit more and then have a more stable drive off.
Well, definitely gonna have to give some lessons to, to everyone watching because you had a fantastic race here tonight. Jeremy, anyone you want to give a shout out to before we send you to the InnoVetted Labs victory lane?
I just want to shout out all the students that just graduated. Congratulations, you guys. I wish you all the best.
All right, always great talking to you, and I'm sure we're gonna speak to you again soon.
Cheers, guys. See you soon.
So it's Jeremy Rogers from Texas A&M, your alumni winner here tonight, and a good run, and really just cool, calm, and collected once again, right?
Yeah, he's talking about Ted Burns from the Wisconsin team not here tonight and not able to sort of challenge Jeremy Rogers. Ted Burns, one of the all-time leaders in the CIL, very familiar with this racing group, and yeah, not here tonight. I think he's out working, doing some more career cup work in his real-time, full-time job as a race engineer for Kelly Moss Road and Race. But unfortunately, not able to be here tonight, and so Jeremy Rogers helping himself to a healthy amount of points.
So joining us now in the booth is Sean D. Campbell, coming away your winner here in this student class, the GT3 class, and fended off the hard-charging Alexander Klink. And Sean, those last couple laps, we saw Klink close and then drop back a little bit, and then close, then drop back. How are you able to keep the car, keep that focus forward in those last couple laps?
It was just a matter of just focusing forward. I would always check behind to see how far away or how close he was, rather, like on the straights. But if I knew he wasn't close enough, I would just not pay attention for the couple of corners.
So in terms of pit strategy, it was pretty close between you guys coming out of the pits. I think Clank tried to execute the undercut. So were you trying to cover him off? Could you have gone a little bit longer when you chose to pit?
No, I couldn't have. I had point 3 laps, I think.
Gotcha. Okay, so not able to cover that, or not able to execute that one from Clank there, but generally a pretty clean race from you tonight. What was your setup strategy for this car? Do you have to take a lot of wing out of it, or how do you like this Mercedes balance in particular compared to some of the other cars?
I don't know. This car's relatively new to me, but I think it behaves a lot like the Porsche RSR GTE, like where it turns a lot on the brake, at least on fresh tires. So I think a lot of the setup was basically to make it turn as good as possible, but also have some straight line speed available.
Right. Well, you certainly put that to perfection. So, being a rookie in the series, what do you think of the series so far? Your first race and your first win, following that up from the podium from last week on the oval side. What do you think so far? Are you going to be able to keep challenging these guys for podiums and wins as we head into the end of the season?
Hopefully, yeah, because I think it's really competitive with, especially in the NASCAR race where we had a green flag run for a very long time. You usually don't see that in officials, but
Yeah.
it was really good.
Well, it was great to watch you run up front and hold off Clank as long as you did. An absolute dream race by you, Sean, and anyone you want to give a shout out to here before we send you to the InnoVetted Labs victory lane.
I'll give a shout out to Michael and Max because they introduced me to the series. I think that's about it.
All right. Well, great talking to you. Congrats again on that win. Like we said, absolutely a dream to watch you those last few laps. So, congrats again and have a great one.
You guys have a good one too.
So, that was Sean D. Campbell, your winner here tonight. You heard him there. Max Bowie, one of our onboard drivers who had an early exit, so we weren't able to catch up with him. One of the guys who introduced him to the league, and glad he did because we've seen Clink run away with some races, and now Clink's definitely got a challenger in Mr. Campbell there in the 30 car.
Yeah, glad to see it too. And everybody that's watching, I'm sure, love to see that. That was a great battle up there at the end. And I really like to see these new rookies coming into the league and really kind of ruffle the fellers of some of the more established guys like Clank and Kaholich that have been vying for podiums for a little bit of time now. So really good to see the new rookies coming in and taking a stand.
So the next driver into our booth is the second place finisher in the student category. That's Alexander Klink from WPI here. And Alex, we saw you chase down the Mercedes of Sean D. Campbell over and over, but just unable to get kind of to his back bumper and sneak on by him. Talk about those final few laps, how hard you were pushing, and did you think you had a shot in any specific corner, or was it just too fast for Sean Campbell?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I feel tired after that one, guys. Yeah, I was pushing really hard. He was, super fast, really consistent, and it was tough. I was trying to get close. I was, I think, faster than him in like the first half of the lap, but the second half of the lap, it's really tough to hang on. Like you get so much aero push like through the carousel, you lose like 2/10, and yeah, it's really tough. I don't know, maybe if he had like a little less wing than me, because I also wasn't making too much time on the straights. Um, so yeah, I didn't really have any real chance when I thought, yes, I'll go for it here. But I mean, it was super, super intense the whole time, really exciting.
Yeah, it was great to watch up here from the booth, especially watching your fastest lap of the race just by pure chance. That last lap, your 2:06.3, which was the fastest lap in the GT3 field. So at least you've got that one under your belt. But it looks like you had a little bit of damage on the front end of your car. When that happened in the race, was that earlier on?
Did I? I don't think that I did. I know that sometimes on this car there can be a visual bug where everyone but the driver sees damage. I don't think I had any like contact or anything, so I wonder if it was something like that. I mean, I didn't think to take like a fast repair because I didn't think there was any damage, so I don't know. I'll
Yeah.
have to look again.
Yeah, fair enough. It's pretty minor damage, and it maybe this looks like the hood got bent up a little bit or something. So probably not anything that hurt you too bad, if at all. But with Sebring coming up in 2 weeks' time, are you looking forward to that one? Does that track suit your style?
Yeah, Sebring's always fun. You know, it's a great challenge. Bumpy, bumpy, bumpy. So very different from this smooth track. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we're looking forward to watching another battle, hopefully, between you and Campbell there at Sebring. So, Mr. Klink, anyone you want to give a shout out to before you head to the InnoVetted Labs podium?
Shout out to him for giving me a good birthday present. That was a fun race, and thanks to you guys. I'll see you next in 2 weeks.
All right, well, go enjoy the rest of your birthday. Happy birthday from all of us here up at CIL. So it's Alexander Klink, the birthday boy, it turns out, having a good little run there. Second place, and maybe just wanted a little bit more for his birthday, but really cool to see. Props from one of the top drivers in CIL, in Alexander Klink, giving it to Sean Campbell. And I think we might have a little battle here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, man, I am looking forward to it, especially at Sebring, where I'm expecting a bit larger field and probably a bit more mistakes at that track. So I think that battle's going to be one to tune in for sure.
And the last driver into the booth is one of our onboard drivers here tonight, Michael Kolich, joining us here. He is the third place finisher in the student category. And Michael, we saw you try and fend off Nate Olson and the likes of a couple other drivers all night long. Talk us through the track here tonight. We saw everyone kind of spread on out, but then selective battles. So take us through that.
Yeah, I'm a lot happier with third this week than I was last week, or 2 weeks ago. I knew after the race I found out, I didn't know it at first, that Nate and Clink had spun in 130R, and so I was just like, all right, well, maybe if I pick my battles here, then maybe they'll make a mistake again. And so at the start, I think I was ahead. No, I think I let Nate by, and then I was just watching eating popcorn, sitting behind Sean and Clink battling. That was awesome watching them go too wide. And and then there you go. Nate made a mistake out of the last corner, made the pass, and then I had to hold him off. I think he made another mistake right before the pit stop, and then I had about a second faster pit stop. And then, yeah, that was pretty much it. Just didn't make any mistakes.
So, do you have any opportunities to save fuel across the lap, being in the draft of some of the other cars? Maybe do a little lift and coast and try to minimize that pit stop time?
No, not really. Whenever we were practicing, it was 19 laps or something like that, and we kind of figured it was good enough to go that long. I know I took a really early pit stop even on full fuel at Suzuka, and I still got an undercut, so I wasn't really that worried about it. No, I didn't save fuel at all.
Gotcha. So, in terms of car pace, how did that Lamborghini compare to some of the Mercedes? It looked like those two Mercedes up front were pretty much untouchable tonight, but a lot of Lamborghinis packed in. There are a couple like 4-car battles with Lamborghinis. How they race at this track?
They raced pretty well. I knew Sean was going to be fast because I already know him. So I knew regardless of what car he was going to be in, he was gone. Yeah, the Lamborghini was fine. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about it. It was fun to drive. Maybe the tires went off a little bit faster. That might have had to do with the brake setting. I had it on medium instead of low. But yeah, I don't know. It was fun. It was a blast.
Well, it sounds like another good race for you, coming away P3 and new to the league, and you're coming in with hot, hot on everyone's tail. Do you have any predictions for next week if you're joining us at the Oval?
I have a prediction that Austin Farr, Jordan Kaler, Sean, Clank again, me, of course, Gomez. I can't forget Gomez. He'll be up there too, for sure.
Definitely. Well, great finish again for you here. Anyone you want to give one last shout out to before we send you to the InnoVetted Labs podium?
Sean for kicking ass in his first race. Oh, can I say that on broadcast? All right. And
Yeah.
my mom, she watched the last few races. The people at ASU, you guys for putting these things on. NextBookIt, of course. and who else do I have? Brian, and yeah, it was a blast.
Well, always a blast watching you put on a show. Looking forward to next week. Have a good one. We'll talk to you again soon.
You guys as well.
So that was Michael Koholich coming away P3 in the students here tonight. So before we come back for the final results, we're going to hear again from the good folks at NextBookIt, and we'll be right back for the final running order. So as you just saw right there, the good folks from NextBookIt connect book lovers with each other to buy and sell everything from textbooks, fiction, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, anything you could think of, really. And you can buy and sell on their website, nextbookit.com. For every account that is created with the code CIL 2021, that's CIL 2021, they're going to put $5 toward the CIL Scholarship Fund, and that goes directly back to the drivers in need. Drivers who might want to try a different car, maybe drivers on the roadside that want to try the oval, or vice versa. Drivers maybe that don't have the track we're racing that week. All is provided in that CIL Scholarship Fund. So a huge shout out to NextBookIt, as you see nextbookit.com finishing order here tonight.
Yeah, so we've got Jeremy Rogers taking home the win for the alumni, the Texas A&M machine, putting on a heck of a show tonight. Closely followed up by Derek Ekmanis for San Diego State and his teammate Jamie Lawrence, also San Diego State, in third. Rahul Bolanetti, Carl Lemkuhl, and Nicholas Daly round out your GTE alumni field. Then on to the students, Sean D. Campbell and Alexander Klink. What a race between those two guys. But Campbell coming out on top for Randolph Community College, and WPI closely following up in second. Then down to Angelo State, Michael Koholich in third. Nate Olson for Illinois in fourth. Thomas Toomey for Virginia in fifth. Cohen Evans for IUPUI in sixth. Alex Jensen, Parker Eaton, Jared Kaler, Matthew Norberg, Jacob G. Watson, the only non-American flag actually in the field tonight, out there from Queensland, Australia. And then Alejandro Diaz, Esteban Munoz, and Maximilian Bui for USC, rounding out your field. The last three not completing the entire length and retiring a little bit early with maybe a few too many car issues. But Jarrett, I'm all on board with this if we're going to see more battles like that at the end of this season, because watching that between Campbell and Klink there at the end, I couldn't get enough of that.
Yeah, we said it at the top of the broadcast how many times these races come down to these battles at the end. For whatever reason, it single files out in the middle of the race, and then we get right back to that racing for position there at the end. And we saw it again tonight, multiple times. And how good is it that it's always for the lead, right? We saw Klink and Campbell back and forth, back and forth. Klink, that little mistake at the end, just couldn't come back from. And it's fun to see Alexander Klink challenge. We saw a season ago him just run away with it in the LMP2 field. So it's great to see the competition continue to get better on both the road and the oval side. So if you've enjoyed this, we also do have that road action next week at USA International Speedway, a not traditional NASCAR track, and that's something we're trying to do here in the CIL, maybe change things up a little bit from the norm. So that's going to be a fun one. Be sure to tune into that, John.
Yeah, and then 2 weeks' time we go to Sebring, and I think that's a night race. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jarrett. So
that is.
Very much looking forward to that one. That's going to be a challenge in multiple ways. Very bumpy track, but then adding in the factor that it's going to be pretty hard to see some of the corners on that track, because even iRacing is not fully updated with some of the track lighting that's been added in the last couple of years to Sebring. So a bit more of a challenge than you might even expect at that one. So definitely looking forward to that one. In terms of points, Jarrett, I think I can rightfully say that WPI is going to move into first position in the student championship. He was 1 point behind Illinois coming into this race, and so Klink finished in second, and I believe Thomas Toomey is the highest finisher of Virginia, coming home in fifth, so that's probably going to promote the WPI team to first position in the student championship. So good to see from them. Sean D. Campbell entering a little bit late into the season, so this is race 4 out of 6, and they all get one drop, so unless he can pull out some sort of miracle miracle and Alexander Clank fails to finish the next couple of races, I think Clank's going to have a not quite so easy run to maybe a couple more victories, but probably will be looking pretty for that Students' Championship.
Definitely. And keep in mind, each of these drivers do get one drop week. So if a driver either has an off week or maybe has some kind of test or exam as well, they do get one drop week that it just doesn't count for points. So your top 5 finishes count toward that point standings. That's what makes it so interesting there at the end, because sure, you might finish in the top 5, but the guy in front of you might finish the top 4 every race. So the guy in front of you might finish with a win one race. So really interesting stuff going on as we wrap this season up. Through 4 out of 6 races, we're past the halfway point here in the road side of things. And as we look forward to the end of the season, 2 more races. John, who do you think in the student category is going to challenge Alexander Klink?
Well, if anybody, it's going to be that Thomas Toomey for the Virginia team that's going to have to step it up there. He's got an unfortunate streak of bad luck, and maybe that's a factor of his number being 66 on his race car. I don't know. Maybe that's got something to do with it. But I remember last season I stopped calling his name so much because it seemed like every time I did, he would be involved in an accident maybe on the next lap. So gonna try to avoid that for him this time. But if anybody's gonna take it to Clank, it's got to be Toomey. He's probably about the only man in the field with the points that it would take. And then, sorry, I'm looking at Illinois. What am I doing here? Virginia's got a stake in this too. They're about 19 points back, but Illinois is gonna be Nate Olson. I'm misreading my notes here. I can't believe it. It's 9:30 here in Texas. I'm tired. I'm sorry, but yeah, Nate Olson. He's been pretty quick actually in that Illinois Lamborghini, but finishing 4th tonight just off the podium. So he's going to be a few points behind as we go into these last 2 races.
Yeah, and some guys, maybe they like certain tracks more than others. So we'll see if Olsen may be able to perform quite well on the bumps of Sebring. So if you want to see that, be sure to tune in again in 2 weeks' time, and we'll bring you the night race. It's sure to be fun. We're going to try and navigate our way through the darkness with the headlights of all these cars and expect a big field for that one, the one night race on the CIL road schedule. So for one last time from up here in the booth, for myself and John, hope you enjoyed here tonight. We definitely enjoyed bringing that to you, and that battle at the end doesn't get much better than that. So if you want to tune in, be sure to follow along next week or the week after. And until then, we'll see you soon, and